Alright, so today we are talking about the film Sound of Freedom starring Jim Caviezel. Now, this film came out a couple weeks ago. It's a huge deal in theaters right now. It surpassed Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny at the box office, but it is also somewhat controversial, and I'm going to address that later on in this video, but just for the beginning of it, it's just going to be the review for the film itself. So let's get into that. So the things I actually liked about this film. I liked most of it, honestly. I was a little concerned knowing that it got the PG-13 rating instead of an R rating. Upon seeing the film, I think the PG-13 rating was totally fine. Given the subject matter, and the way the film was edited and uniquely filmed and the direction of certain scenes, they were able to get across what was happening, and they did it very tactfully and artistically as well, and I thought it worked fine. And like I said in my reaction, there are ways to do it and keep it PG-13, and I think that's exactly what they did, and they did it really well. I've seen other films where they've tried to imply certain things, sexual content or violence, and keep it PG-13. And unless you have a director who's actually really good at doing that, it comes across incredibly cheesy. This director definitely knew what he was doing, and you could tell that lots of thought went into how do we show these very sensitive scenes in a way that is not graphic for the viewer, but also doesn't fully hold back. I thought they did it fantastic. So as we all know, this film is a film that deals with different aspects of sexual abuse, mostly of minors. That's kind of the goal of this movie, is to bring awareness to this problem, and I think it did its job. There are a lot of moving pieces to everything that deals with child trafficking, drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, all of that. And this film really focuses on just like one or two pieces of that. There are people who will say,
well, this film makes it seem like get a good guy with a gun and they can solve everything.
I disagree. I felt that this just showed an aspect of things that can be done to kind of mess up or slow down the big machine of trafficking. If you have a machine with a bunch of gears and you mess up one of the gears, you might have other parts of the machine still working, but they're not going to work with the same efficiency as if it was working fine.
It only works if all the little cogs mesh together.
Yes, stopping the problems of trafficking requires so much more than a good guy with a gun. But that shouldn't be just thrown out the window, because that wasn't the point of this movie, and I didn't see the film even trying to push that viewpoint at all. So I thought the acting in this movie was fantastic. I would argue that this is Caviezel's best performance. Physically, he put in more of a performance for The Passion of the Christ. On a more subtle acting level, I felt that he did a much better job in this. Of course, he won't win any awards because this movie is being hit and attacked by the left-wing media, and I'll touch on that in a moment. But I do think that this was one of his best performances. I think he should be commended for that. He's such an interesting actor because he does have a soft-spoken voice, but it's also kind of harsh, like you can feel pain behind it. His eyes are so captivating, so deep, and you can see all this pain in his eyes, and I just thought he did fantastic in this film. Also, the other supporting cast members were great. I didn't see a single actor or actress in this movie where I was like, oh, they should have cast better, or oh, you can tell this person really doesn't know how to act and must have been like the director's nephew or something. I just thought it was all like really top notch as far as acting goes. In general, I thought the film was pretty top notch, actually. The cinematography was very professional and artistic, but it never crossed that point of being artistic so much so that you're sitting there going, oh, that was super artistic. Like, as a normal moviegoer, you wouldn't pick up on these things. When I watch movies, I watch through like a bunch of different lenses. It's just kind of how my brain works, and because I want to do reviews of them and talk about the different aspects of the film itself. So I was able to pick up on it, but a normal moviegoer wouldn't. So I thought it was really, really good. I was very impressed. Considering this is a Christian studio production, I was very impressed. I have seen lots of Christian films growing up as a fundamental evangelical Baptist. Lots of Christian movies that are produced are really bad. When Facing the Giants came out by the Kendrick brothers from Sherwood Pictures, people were like, oh, this is Hollywood quality, blah, blah, blah. And it felt like that compared to other Christian films at that time. I think I just hit something. This film, Sound of Freedom, actually feels like a real Hollywood movie. If you didn't know it was made by Angel Studios, I don't think anyone would have guessed that this was a Christian produced film. I think that is great. Like I said, the editing was very good. I thought it was very tactful in how it portrayed the more unsettling and difficult things to talk about in this movie and to show. And I thought it was done really well. The soundtrack was great too. I feel like all the aspects of this movie really worked together to make a great movie. And I would consider this a great movie. I would consider this the best film from a Christian studio that I've ever seen. And I liked also that it didn't preach a message of Christianity at all. So if you have atheists seeing it, or agnostics, or whatever, they can watch it without feeling like an agenda for Christianity is being pushed on them. And I think that's fantastic. Speaking of agendas, let's talk about the politics surrounding this movie. So I said in my reaction video to the trailer, you're going to get people who are going to say, oh, this is just propaganda, it's a lot of nonsense, just trying to push an agenda. And then you're going to get other people who take it for like 100% gospel truth and run with it. And that's exactly what happened. But if you actually look at the film in of itself, I didn't see it pushing any sort of agenda, whether for religion or for like quote unquote QAnon conspiracy. The only thing that I think people can rightfully say is a QAnon like dog whistle for this film is that some of the posters say save the children or hashtag save the children, whatever. And that is a very common QAnon, like it's like a dog whistle for them. So there was that, but that's in the poster. And then in the end credits, there is a special message from Jim Caviezel himself, and he is a QAnoner. He believes in the whole adrenochrome thing and selling babies to politicians for evil purposes and stuff. But in the end credits, when he gives his special message, he says something along the lines of,
for a couple of months, while Sound of Freedom is in theaters, these kids can be more powerful than the cartel kingpins, or presidents, or congressmen, or even tech billionaires.
And I was like, that's interesting phrasing, because I feel like that was very planned. He really tried to set us up to subconsciously think cartel kingpins. That's the first example he used. And when you use that example, we all know the cartel is bad, so that's automatically telling us we're thinking about the bad guys. And then he mentions congressmen or presidents. And we all know politicians on some level are all corrupt on both the right and the left. So he already put in this subconscious thought into your mind of talking about bad people. So instead of saying this story is more powerful than kings and princes and millionaires, instead he pushes in this QAnon underlying message just to call out to the QAnoners in the audience and to kind of prep our minds for more propaganda that we're going to continue seeing online and in the media. So I felt that was very purposeful. I mentioned it to somebody else and they didn't pick up on it, and I said that was exactly the point. So it's very, very subtle.
Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
But it was a special message portion after the film, so I wouldn't connect that to the main film. The main film itself, I didn't see any QAnon agenda or anything like that. And I didn't see a religious agenda either. They mentioned God 3 times, and I think they mentioned prayer once or twice. There's a reference about St. Timothy, but that was it. There's no scenes at church. There's no scenes talking with a pastor or anything like that. I don't even think there was a scene with an open Bible in this movie. I don't feel it pushed a religious agenda. Does it appeal to those types of people? Absolutely. But the film itself, I didn't see any of that, and I was looking for it too. So as far as the story itself being true, I did look into it a little bit. I'll leave the links below in the description. Most of the film is pretty true. There are some portions of the movie that were shortened and simplified just so that they could make it into a 2.5-hour movie. I'm fine with that. They did add a part in the film that was completely just made up. It was dramatic. It was a good thriller part of the movie, but it didn't happen. You could have shaved off 20 minutes of this movie if you would have cut this out, and I think the movie would have been just as good. I'm not totally sure why they kept it in. Personally, I really enjoyed this film, so on a personal rating, I would probably give it an 8. I can't really think of anything I would have done differently if I was making this movie. I had a feeling the rewatchability on this film was going to be lower than I'm going to give it, just because the subject matter is very difficult. Will I watch this again? Maybe once, but it's not something I really want to rewatch. But it does have a thriller aspect to it as well, so it's not just sludging through all this subject matter that is very difficult to talk about and to watch. There's a solid crime thriller in this film, so that makes it more rewatchable. I would probably give it a 6. A filmmaking aspect, I would probably give this a 9. I mean, it hit everything right with the editing, the direction, the acting, the music, the cinematography. Everything about it was top notch. Really don't know how you could make this any better. Alright, so those are my thoughts on Sound of Freedom. If you've seen it, leave your thoughts below in the comments. I would be interested in reading them. And if you haven't, I would suggest to go watch this movie. Whether you're on the right-wing side of things or the left-wing side of things. Just go into it with an open mind, watch it for what it is, and I just think everyone should see it, honestly. Also, if you like this video, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I would very much appreciate it. Alright, thanks for watching. My name is Aaron, and I hope you come back and see me in another video. Goodbye. Whee! Oh, damn.